The man in the window. I never considered myself the type to believe in ghosts, demons, or anything supernatural. I was a rational man, a carpenter by trade, a father, a husband. But what happened to me one cold autumn night in 2013 changed the way I see the world forever. It started with a simple job. A friend of mine, Jason, had inherited an old farmhouse from his grandparents in rural Pennsylvania. The place had been empty for years, and he wanted to renovate it before putting it on the market. He asked if I could come by and help with some repairs. It was a quiet, isolated spot, just a few houses nearby, surrounded by acres of empty fields. The kind of place where the silence presses down on you. I arrived in the late afternoon. The house was exactly what you'd expect from an abandoned farmhouse. Weathered wood, broken windows, and the unmistakable scent of rot. The floors creaked with every step. Jason wasn't there yet, but he'd left a spare key under a loose brick on the porch, so I let myself in. The plan was simple. Fix a few broken floorboards, check the wiring, and get the hell out before it got too dark. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt it. Not fear, exactly, but something. Off. The air was thick, stale. I chalked it up to the house being empty for so long and got to work. About an hour in, as I was kneeling on the floor, hammering nails into a new plank, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps above me. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I froze, my grip tightening around the hammer. The house was supposed to be empty. I stood up, listening. The footsteps stopped. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old buildings make noises, right? I shook it off and got back to work. Then, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. That was no house-settling noise. It sounded like a door slamming shut. My heart pounded in my chest as I grabbed my flashlight and went to investigate. The staircase was narrow, the kind that groaned under every step. As I reached the top, I shined my light down the long hallway. Dust hung thick in the air, swirling in the beam. I checked each room, one by one, empty. When I got to the last room, I hesitated. The door was slightly ajar. Something about it made my stomach tighten. I pushed it open. Nothing, just an old bedroom, stripped of furniture. A single window overlooked the field outside, where the last light of day was fading. I let out a breath. Maybe the wind had slammed the door. Maybe I was just jumpy. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw it. A shadow moved in the reflection of the window. Not my shadow. Something or someone was standing in the hallway behind me. I spun around, flashlight shaking in my grip. No one was there. The hallway was empty. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I wasn't imagining this. I wasn't tired, wasn't drunk. Something was in this house with me. I hurried downstairs, grabbed my tools, and decided to wait for Jason outside. I wasn't about to stick around in that house alone any longer than I had to. The sun had set completely now. The sky a deep, bruised blue. The only light came from the porch and the dim glow of Jason's headlights as he pulled up the driveway. "You all right?" he asked as he stepped out of his truck. "Yeah, I lied. This place is just creepy." Jason laughed. "Yeah, my grandma always said it was haunted." I forced a chuckle, trying to shake the unease crawling up my spine. We went inside together. With him there, the house didn't feel as oppressive. We worked for another hour, chatting about life, sports, the usual. Then Jason went upstairs to check the plumbing. I was alone again. I kept my head down, focusing on my work, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. And then, the footsteps started again. But this time, they weren't coming from upstairs. They were coming from right behind me. I turned slowly, every nerve in my body screaming. There, standing in the doorway leading to the kitchen, was a man, tall, gaunt. His skin was pale, almost gray. His eyes were sunken hollow. His clothes were tattered, hanging loosely on his skeletal frame. He was just standing there, staring at me, his mouth open slightly, as if he wanted to say something. A dry, rasping sound came out, like leaves scraping together in the wind. My breath hitched in my throat. Then he moved. Not walked, glided. His feet didn't make a sound against the floor. I stumbled back, knocking over my toolbox. My heart was a hammer in my chest. And then he was gone, vanished. Jason came running down the stairs. What the hell was that? I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the doorway. He looked, saw nothing. You okay, man? I swallowed hard. We need to leave. Jason must have seen the fear in my eyes because he didn't argue. We grabbed our things and got out of there. As we stood in the driveway, locking up the house, Jason hesitated. My grandma always said she saw a man in the windows at night, he said quietly. I turned to look, and there, in the upstairs window, a figure stood, watching us. My blood ran cold. Jason sucked in a sharp breath. What the hell, man? He whispered. The figure didn't move, didn't shift. It was as if he were carved from the darkness itself. Then, suddenly, the light in the room flickered, and the figure smiled. A slow, jagged grin, stretching impossibly wide across his face. His teeth were wrong, too long, too sharp. I felt my stomach twist in horror. Jason didn't speak. He just threw his keys into the ignition, and we sped away down the dirt road, gravel spraying behind us. I never went back. Later, I did some research. Turns out, back in the 1940s, the house had belonged to a man named Walter Grayson. He was a recluse, never married, never had children. The neighbors said he was strange, that he talked to himself. One night, he simply vanished. No body was ever found. Some said he had gone mad, wandering off into the fields to die. Others believed something darker had happened inside that house. Maybe Walter never left. Maybe he was still there, watching, waiting. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone.
That's it for tonight's tale. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Be sure to stay tuned for even more nerve-thrilling horror stories every single week. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us here at the Hollow Horror. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Until then, stay safe. Or stay scared. See you next time.